With the lowest voter turnout since World War II, this past election showed that people don't understand what states' rights are and the power that states have. Our nation is a constitutional federation, where a collection of states come together and form an alliance where the states give up some of their sovereignty to be part of said union. Our states have direct elections of all their state representatives and get to decide voting laws so long as they aren't unconstitutional. Many nations in Europe, for example, are not federations. You vote for your representative, and the government appoints the mayor or governor of your region. Spain and Ukraine are like this, which is fueling tensions in the area, especially since there are so many varied cultures and customs in just one country. States' rights are ones that do not contradict things directly or indirectly in the Constitution. The issue of states' rights was a concept that was championed for most of the 19th and 20th centuries by Southern segregationists and prior to that, the secessionists. Although the framers of the 14th Amendment said that the amendment should make the 1st through 8th Amendments apply to the states instead of just the federal government, judges at the time refused to interpret it that way until the 1920s. The U.S. governments could not legally stop states from oppressing minorities prior to this time, and from the 1940s to the 60s, the Supreme Court gradually incorporated these amendments into the state laws to protect minority rights and voting rights. This has caused a lot of tension and anger from modern states' rights proponents, most of whom are unaware of the reasons for the state's decisions and its murky and violent past. The violent period 70 years after the Civil War in the South had significant impacts on interstate commerce and relations. The Constitution says plainly that these issues are the purview of the national government as well. Has the federal government overstepped some of the states' rights? Perhaps, but that's another topic. Because of the 14th Amendment, the government has to raise money to enforce it, otherwise it has no teeth, which created the federal taxation system. Congress has the ability to put conditions on certain amounts of money they direct to states, which forces them to do things in a certain way. If the state is wealthy enough or opposes the idea strongly enough, they can forego the money. But if a state is poorer, the attempt will be to bring the state up if they aren't doing things the most efficient or ethical way. This sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So I guess this means we should only vote in presidential elections and ignore state elections, right? Because Congress has all the power and the states don't. Well, not quite. The states can raise taxes and build infrastructure as well. They can do pretty much anything the federal government hasn't said they can't do, which is surprisingly a lot. They are in charge of infrastructure, police and emergency, prisons, controlled substances like marijuana, and even alcohol, where there are still dry counties in some states. Your roads and schools, your state and property taxes, trade deals to bring jobs into the state, these are all things that significantly impact you as a person, that your state has full control over. If you care about marijuana legalization or marriage equality, voting in your state's elections are just as important, if not more so, than the federal election. They also control regulations such as pollution or red tape. States can even call a constitutional convention if enough state governments want to change the Constitution, while the federal government does not. State governments also decide how and whether to gerrymander their states, which impacts the makeup of the federal House significantly. City elections control your local infrastructure, such as whether your water drains correctly after rain, which can mean the difference between a wet day and flooding. They can control your school boards, which decide to go with school books that don't actually teach science or history. City governments also decide how to control and incentivize their police and how they treat their homeless, and whether there are bike trails or public transit. If you think the federal election is all that matters, and then are disgusted because you fail to see change, you don't understand the system at all. Decisions the federal government makes are going to impact you directly, possibly less than what the state and city government will do. On top of this, these state elected officials will be the pool to pick from later from the federal elected officials, and if your party only has crappy people to choose from on the state level, there will only be crappy people running for the federal level. Don't be confused or complacent because it's just a local election. While it's not the biggest, most exciting, and have the most hype, it will affect you just as much as the federal election, and perhaps even more so, and because of the size, an issue you care about may be easier to change through the state or local level, setting a model for the nation to adopt. Hey there, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw from my channel, please subscribe and donate to my Patreon. If you have evidence to counter what I say, please provide it. If you would like to see what I was doing with this channel 5 years ago, please click the links on the screen. Thank you so much.